The mess hall of Unity's Reach was still frozen in silence. Every voice had gone quiet the moment Jack Carter stepped through the door. The big human moved like someone who didn't need to hurry to be dangerous. His steps were steady, his eyes fixed on one person, Rin, the Tsar Cadet, still standing awkwardly beside Alara. Rin's skin prickled under the stares. He didn't understand why the humans looked at him like that. In Tsar culture, touching someone's arm was nothing, just a way to get their attention. But here, it was as if he had stepped into a nest of predators. He shifted uncomfortably, his ridged head tilting as Jack came closer. Jack didn't say a word, stopped a meter away, his eyes flicking once to Alara. She gave a small shake of her head, like she was silently warning him not to overreact. But Jack's gaze returned to Rin, and in that instant, the young cadet felt like every muscle in his body wanted to move away. He stood his ground, though lifting his chin in defiance. The crowd seemed to lean forward. Even the hum of the station's air filters felt distant. Jack's voice was low and calm. "Did you just put your hand on her?" Rin frowned. "Only tapped her arm." It is he didn't finish the sentence. It happened so fast that his brain couldn't process it in order. Jack's hand shot out like a lightning strike, gripping Rin's wrist. Before Rin could react, Jack twisted, stepped forward and pressed, down on his elbow. There was a sickening pop and a flash of white-hot pain that ripped a cry from Rin's throat. The Tsar Cadet's knees buckled. His other arm flailed, claws scraping the metal wall as if that could somehow pull him free. His shoulder screamed with every movement, pain radiating down to his fingertips. He tried to pull away, but Jack's grip was like a machine clamp steady. Unshakable .ry and gasped for breath, his pride fighting to keep him from howling in front of the crowd. But the pain was too much. "Release," he snarled. But the word broke off in another grunt of agony. Jack leaned in, his mouth near Rin's ear. His voice was quiet enough that only the cadet could hear, but the tone was pure steel. One touch, one warning. "Next time, you won't need a medic. You'll need a priest." The words sent a cold shiver down Rin's spine, colder than the pain itself. Then, just as suddenly as it began, Jack let go. Rin staggered backward, clutching his limp arm to his chest. His vision blurred for a moment, and the floor tilted under him. He bit back another cry and straightened, breathing hard. The humans around them hadn't moved. No one had stepped in to stop Jack. No one even looked surprised. Station security finally arrived, 2 uniformed officers pushing through the crowd. One of them, a tall insectoid, looked from Jack to Rin and asked in a bored tone, "Medical assistance?" Rin hissed through his teeth. "Yes." The officer didn't even question Jack. Instead, he signaled for a medical drone. Security officer gave Jack a nod, almost a respectful one, and turned to clear a path for Rin. Rin's mind spun. In Tsar military training, an attack like that would have been grounds for a formal duel, maybe even expulsion. But here, no one seemed to think Jack had done anything wrong, as the med drone floated up, scanning his shoulder. Rin forced himself to look at Jack. The human stood where he was, calm and steady, his hands at his sides. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He just watched Rin with the same cold, unreadable stare. Rin wanted to spit out a threat to tell Jack that Tsar warriors didn't forgive insults. But the words wouldn't come. His body was still in shock from the pain, and his pride burned hotter than his shoulder. The Madrone beeped softly, adjusting a sling around Rin's arm. Its artificial voice reported, "Shoulder joint partially dislocated. Soft tissue damage. Recommend 3 rotations in recovery chamber." Rin swallowed the lump in his throat. "Fine," he said stiffly. The crowd began to disperse conversations, resuming in low tones. But Rin could feel the eyes on him. Not just from humans, but from other alien cadets as well. Some looked curious. Others looked almost sorry for him. As the med drone guided him toward the exit, Rin glanced back one last time. Jack hadn't moved. Alara had stepped closer to him now, speaking quietly. Jack nodded once, and for a brief second, his gaze flicked toward Rin again. There was no anger there anymore, just a kind of finality, like the matter was already settled, but to Rin, It was far from settled. Pain burned through his arm with every step toward the medbay. But another feeling simmered beneath its shame. The strike had been fast, clean, and devastating. Jack hadn't even needed to raise his voice. It wasn't just physical strength. It was control. That was what made the humiliation worse. In the medbay, the recovery chamber hissed open, and the medical tech, a short amphibian with pale green skin, motioned for him to step in. "First time tangling with a Deathworlder?" the tech asked. Casually as he began the treatment cycle, Rin's brow ridges lowered. "What's that supposed to mean?" The tech gave a little shrug. "You'll learn. Everyone does once." Rin didn't answer. He lay back in the chamber as the medfield hummed to life, bathing his shoulder in warmth and dulling the pain. His mind replayed the moment again, and again the sudden grip, the twist, the pop, and that voice, calm/cold, certain it wasn't just about touching the human girl. No, this was about something deeper, something unspoken that every other human seemed to understand instinctively. He had stepped into a line he didn't even know existed. As the medfield worked, Rin's breathing slowed, but his thoughts didn't. He saw Jack's steady eyes in his mind and felt his pride bristle again. He wasn't going to be just another alien who whispered about the Deathworlder and kept his distance. No, this wasn't over. The treatment cycle finished with a soft chime. Rin flexed his fingers carefully, testing the arm. The pain was still there. A reminder that every move could send a fresh wave of agony through the joint. He stepped out of the chamber and into the cool corridor outside. The station lights seemed harsher than before, the noise sharper. Somewhere far above, the docking bay alarms chimed as new shuttles arrived. Life on Unity's reach went on as if nothing had happened. But for Rin, everything had shifted. The humans had rules he didn't understand yet Carter had just taught him the first one, still cradling his arm. He turned down the corridor toward the barracks. The crowd in the mess hall had seen him fall. That memory would travel fast. By the time he reached his quarters, every alien cadet would have heard that the Tsar, who touched the Deathworlder's girl, got his shoulder wrecked in less than a second. He could already hear the whispers in his mind. Some would laugh, some would shake their heads and mutter about human danger. But none of them would forget, neither would he. And under the pain, under the sting of humiliation, a dangerous thought began to grow. He was going to make Jack Carter pay for this. The barracks were quiet, except for the low hum of the station's ventilation. Rows of narrow bunks stretched along the metallic walls. The air thick with the faint scent of disinfectant and recycled oxygen. Rin stepped inside, his arm still in a sling, his shoulder aching with every slight movement. A few alien cadets looked up from their bunks when he entered. Their eyes darted to the sling, then to his face. No one spoke at first, but the silence wasn't friendly. It was the kind of pause before whispers start. Rin walked past them, pretending not to notice. He dropped onto his bunk with a wince, leaning back against the cold wall. The pain wasn't unbearable now. The medbay had taken care of the worst, but his pride was another matter. He could still hear the echo of bone and tendon giving way. He could still hear Jack Carter's calm voice. The whispers started. Two insectoid recruits chittered softly at the far end of the barracks, their words a sharp clicking in their native tongue. Even without knowing the exact translation, Rin could hear the rhythm of mockery in it. A scaled reptilian cadet sitting on the next bunk over spoke more openly. "So," the reptilian drawled in a deep, slow voice, "you touched the human female?" Rin's jaw tightened. It was nothing. Just a tap on the arm. The reptilian let out a low, hissing chuckle. "To a Deathworlder's mate, there is no such thing as just a tap." Another cadet, a thin, long-limbed avian with bright, golden eyes, leaned forward from across the aisle. "Is it true?" they asked quietly. "He took your arm out in one move." Rin shot them a glare. It was a cheap trick. The avian tilted their head. "No, that's not a trick. It's training. Deathworlders don't fight to win. They fight to end fights." Rin opened his mouth to argue, but a voice from the corner cut him off. It was deeper, older, worn down by time. "Kid," the voice said, "if you got on the wrong side of a Deathworlder, and you're still breathing, you should count yourself lucky." Rin turned his head to see the speaker and older alien soldier, thick-bodied and scarred, sitting on his bunk with his arms crossed. His skin was the mottled gray of someone who had seen too many years and too many battlefields. The veteran leaned forward slightly. "I've fought alongside them, humans, especially the ones from Deathworld-class colonies. They grow up where the ground tries to kill them, the air tries to kill them, the animals try to kill them, and sometimes even the water will kill them if they drink it wrong." He paused, his eyes locking on Rin, and when something grows up in that kind of place, you do not want to be the thing standing between them and someone they care about. The reptilian cadet gave a small nod. "I've heard the same. There's a reason humans have a reputation for escalation." Rin frowned, the pain in his shoulder making his temper even shorter. "They're not invincible. No species is." The veteran gave a slow, almost pitying smile. "That's true. They can be killed. But you'll find they tend to make the one who tries to pay a higher price than it's worth." The avian cadet shifted on their bunk, eyes still on Rin. "Heard a story from the frontier," they said. "A squad of mercenaries Krell, not human, ambushed a Deathworlder scout team. The humans lost one. The mercenaries lost. All of them. No survivors. The humans didn't even use their rifles. It's just knives in their bare hands." Rin snorted. "Old war stories? I've heard plenty about the great and terrible Deathworlders. I'm still standing after facing one." The veteran shook his head. "You're standing because he let you." It made the barracks go silent again. Rin felt heat rising under his skin. He hated the idea. The thought that Jack Carter might have chosen to stop short of doing worse made his stomach twist. He wanted to believe it had been a real fight, that he'd been unlucky, caught off guard. But when he replayed the moment in the mess hall, he couldn't escape the fact that Jack's movements had been calm, measured, precise, no wasted energy, no desperation, just control. The reptilian broke the silence. "If you really think you can match him, challenge him. There's a training arena. Rules witnesses. No one dies. But you'd better be ready." Rin didn't answer. His claws tapped lightly against the metal edge of his bunk. The pain in his shoulder flared when he moved, but the ache in his pride was worse. He lay back and stared at the ceiling. The whispers in the barracks faded into the background, replaced by the sound of his own breathing. The veteran's words wouldn't leave his mind. "You're standing because he let you." It didn't matter if it was true or not. The doubt was enough to fuel the fire building inside him. If Jack Carter thought he could humiliate him and walk away, he was wrong. Rin would prove it. He just needed the right moment. The station's artificial daylight cycle had shifted to evening mode, casting the corridors of Unity's reach in a dim amber glow. Most cadets were heading to their quarters or the entertainment decks, but Rin was moving in the opposite direction. His shoulders still throbbed under the sling, though the medbay said it would be fully healed in another day. He didn't care. He'd spent the last 24 hours replaying every detail of the mess hall incident, Jack Carter's calm face, the speed of his grip, the way the humans didn't even question his actions. Every time he remembered it, a fresh wave of humiliation surged through him. The whispers in the barracks hadn't stopped. Some cadets spoke openly now, sharing human war stories like they were folk legends. Others didn't bother hiding their smirks when Rin walked past. The older veteran's words, "You're standing because he let you still," echoed in his mind. That was when he decided he wasn't going to wait for the shame to fade. He wasn't going to swallow the insult and pretend nothing had happened. If the humans respected strength, then he would give them strength. If they admired courage, then he would show them courage. Or at least that was what he told himself. He found Jack exactly where the reptilian cadet had said he might, in the observation deck's training level, where the low-gravity combat arenas were. Through the transparent barrier, Rin could see Jack inside one of the sparring rings. Moving through a slow sequence of strikes and counters against a human opponent, Jack wasn't even breathing hard. His movements were fluid, controlled, precise. Every punch and kick ended exactly where it needed to. as if his muscles were guided by something deeper than conscious thought. Rin stepped forward, his boots clicking sharply on the metal floor. The sound drew the attention of the humans around the ring. Conversations dropped in volume. A few faces lit up in recognition. This was going to be interesting. Jack glanced over his shoulder. His expression didn't change. Rin raised his voice. "So everyone could hear. Carter?" The name rang through the training hall. The human sparring with Jack paused and stepped back. Jack straightened and turned to face Rin fully. "I'm challenging you," Rin said, his ridged head high, his voice steady. "Formal combat. Station arena. Your choice of time." A few aliens in the crowd exchanged looks. The challenge wasn't unusual mixed-species stations. It had rules for settling disputes, but challenging a Deathworlder was another matter. Jack studied him for a long moment. "Formal combat," he repeated, his tone even. "Winner takes what?" "Loser leaves the station," Rin said. That got the crowd buzzing. That was no small wager. Unity's Reach was a hub of opportunity for cadets. Being forced to leave would be a career killer. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in interest. "All right," he said at last. "But I have one condition." Brow ridges lowered. "Name it." Jack stepped closer, stopping just inside Rin's personal space. His voice was calm, almost casual, but the weight in it made the air feel heavier. "No weapons. No armor. No mercy." The crowd went still. No one laughed now. Rin's mouth went dry for a fraction of a second, but he forced himself to nod. Agreed. Jack's gaze held his for another heartbeat before he stepped back. "Tomorrow. First shift. Arena 3. With that, he turned away, picking up his sparring where he'd left off. As if the challenge were nothing more than a minor interruption, Rin stood there for a moment. The low murmur of the crowd filling the space between his racing thoughts. Part of him had expected Jack to refuse, to dismiss him as not worth the effort. Instead, the human had accepted without hesitation. It made Rin's blood run hotter. When he left the training deck, the whispers had already started. News of the duel was spreading through the station like a current. By the time Rin returned to the barracks, cadets were looking at him with a mix of pity and excitement. Some thought he was insane. Others thought he was brave. Rin didn't care which. Tomorrow, in front of half the station, he would prove that Deathworlders could bleed, or he would leave Unity's Reach in disgrace. Either way, the humiliation of the mess hall would end. The training arena of Unity's Reach was never quiet, but that morning it felt different, charged, almost humming with anticipation. Cadets from every corner of the station had gathered, filling the observation tiers that ringed Arena 3. The chatter was low and constant. A ripple of voices that carried the same question: was the Tsar Cadet insane or about to make history? Arena floor was a circle of reinforced composite plating. It's big enough for close combat, but small enough that there was nowhere to run. Overhead, the lights were bright and clinical, casting sharp shadows across the smooth surface. Rin stood in one corner, rolling his shoulders. His injured arm had been fully treated, but the memory of the pain was still there, buried under the adrenaline rushing through his veins. He had spent the night training, practicing his strikes, rehearsing counters. He had studied human movement. In the simulation chambers, convinced he could predict Jack Carter's patterns, but when Jack stepped onto the arena floor, all of Rin's preparation suddenly felt small. The Deathworlder moved with a steady confidence, his posture relaxed, his breathing even. He wasn't armored, just wearing the standard training uniform, a plain black shirt, loose trousers, and light-grip boots. There was nothing flashy about him, but somehow that made him more dangerous. They met in the center. The referee, a tall, four-armed Kethan, standing between them. Rules are agreed upon by both parties. The referee announced. No weapons, no armor, no mercy. Combat ends when one fighter yields, is incapacitated, or dies. Is this understood? Rin nodded sharply. Understood. Jack gave a single, calm nod. Understood. The Cathan stepped back. Begin. Rin moved first, fast. He launched forward with a sharp, driving punch aimed at Jack's chest. The human didn't block it, was worse than that. Jack wasn't there. He had stepped sideways just enough to let the strike sail past, and before Rin could recover. A quick tap of Jack's palm against his ribs sent him stumbling back 2 steps. The crowd murmured. It hadn't been a powerful hit, but it was enough. To show control, Rin reset his stance and came in again, this time leading with a feint and following with a high kick aimed at Jack's head. Jack ducked, fluid as water, and his legs swept out low, catching Rin's foot and sending him half-spinning. Rin caught himself before falling, but his balance was off, his rhythm broken. Jack didn't attack. That made Rin's jaw clench. He came forward harder, throwing a series of strikes, elbows, knees, hooks each, one aimed to drive Jack back. But Jack blocked with minimal effort, his hands snapping into place at just the right moments, deflecting. Without wasting motion, it was like fighting a shadow that had decided to hit back only when it felt like it. Rin stepped back, breathing faster. "Fight me, Deathworlder," he snarled. Jack's voice was calm even. "I am." The words hit harder than any strike. Rin lunged again, swinging wide, trying to force an opening. This time, Jack moved in close, too close for Rin to bring his fists to bear. A quick twist of Jack's body, a shift in weight, and Rin felt himself being turned. His arm caught in a grip that sent a warning spike of pain through his shoulder, not the same shoulder as before. Jack was careful about that, but the message was clear. Rin jerked free, breathing hard. Sweat was already prickling along his neck ridges. The crowd was louder now, the noise rising in waves. Every time Jack made him miss, every time he slipped away from a blow, the murmurs grew. Rin knew what they were seeing. A Tsar cadet chasing a human who seemed untouchable. His pride burned. He had to land a hit-one clean strike to prove to everyone, to himself, that Jack Carter could be hurt. He darted forward again, feinting left, then snapping a hook from the right. Jack caught it in his palm, gripping Rin's wrist like it was nothing, and pulled him forward into a short, brutal knee strike to the midsection. Air exploded from Rin's lungs, his vision blurring for half a second. He staggered back, clutching his side. Jack didn't press. He just waited again, watching, studying, and that was the worst part. Jack wasn't fighting to finish him yet. He was teaching. Rin's claws flexed. He wasn't here to learn. He was here to win her, at least. Not lose so badly that the mess hall incident would haunt him forever. But as the match stretched on, every move he made seemed to play into Jack's control. Every strike that missed, every counter he failed to land, chipped away at the certainty he'd brought into the arena. The Deathworlder was calm. The Deathworlder was patient, and Rin was starting to feel like he was dancing to music only. Jack could hear. Cadet Threx staggered back, clutching his shoulder as pain flooded his nervous system. The training hall fell into a stunned silence. Even the ventilation fans seemed to pause every alien present. Knew humans were strong, but no one expected that kind of precision. It wasn't just brute force. It was control. Threx's breathing turned ragged. "What did you do?" His voice trembled. Not just from pain, but from the cold realization that he had underestimated the Deathworlder by a mile. Sira didn't move from her spot. She was calm, her face unreadable, like nothing unusual had happened. "Removed your balance," she said simply, her tone almost casual. "You reached for me. That was your mistake." The other cadets exchanged uneasy glances. It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of fact. The instructor, an older Vren soldier with years of combat experience, stepped forward. His long, segmented tail tapped the floor nervously. "Cadet Threx," he said in a slow, careful tone. "Do you require medical attention?" Threx's pride burned hotter than the pain. "I'm fine," he growled. But the way his left arm hung limp betrayed the truth. He glanced at Sira, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't over, human." Sira didn't bother replying. She simply turned and walked away as though his words carried no weight at all. That, somehow, was worse. For the rest of the day, Threx barely spoke. His friends tried to distract him, but he was trapped in a loop of replaying the moment in his head, the speed, the accuracy, the way she didn't even seem winded. By nightfall, a rumor had begun to spread through the academy. Some claimed Sira had crushed a bone with a single strike. Others said she'd somehow used a human nerve technique that could disable a limb. None of them really knew, but all of them began to look at her differently. When lights out came, Threx lay awake in his bunk. He flexed his injured shoulder, feeling the sharp twinge with every movement. Human had embarrassed him in front of everyone, and tomorrow he planned to get his payback. The only problem was, deep down, a small part of him was afraid. Threx's plan for payback never got off the ground. By the next morning, his injury had worsened. The medic said there was deep tissue damage, nothing life-threatening, but enough to sideline him from combat drills for a week. That only gave him more time to watch Sira. From the upper observation deck, he studied her every move during training. She wasn't flashy, she didn't show off, but every motion was efficient, every strike measured. It was like she was conserving her strength for something bigger. And then, the something bigger arrived. The Academy's warning klaxons blared, bathing the halls in red light. Alien instructors shouted orders. All cadets were called to defensive positions. A patrol ship had gone missing just outside the Academy's defense perimeter. Worse, the scanners picked up unidentified contacts approaching fast. Cadets scrambled into formation, but Threx noticed Sira's reaction. She didn't look nervous. She didn't even look surprised. She was scanning the horizon like she'd been expecting this. The incoming craft broke through the cloud sleek, dark and bristling with weapons. They weren't pirates. They weren't smugglers. These were hunters. The first missile volley hit the outer wall, and the ground shook. Sirens screamed. The cadets returned fire with pulse rifles, but the attackers were fast, ducking in and out of cover like shadows. Then one of the craft banked low, heading straight for the cadet formation. Panic broke out. Everyone dove for cover. Everyone, except Sira. She stepped forward, calm, centered. She whispered something. Threx couldn't hear it, and then she moved. What happened next burned into his memory forever. The human blurred into action, vaulting over a barricade, sprinting straight into the path of the attackers. With a precision throw, she sent a small, disc-like device spinning into their engine intake. The resulting explosion lit up the sky. The attackers pulled back instantly, retreating into the clouds. The Academy grounds were left in smoking silence, and every alien cadet turned toward Sira, questions in their eyes. Threx didn't say a word, just stared at her. The fear in his chest now mixed with something else, respect. Because in that moment he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just another human. She was here for a reason. The training hall was silent. Too silent, every cadet stood in a wide circle, eyes locked on Joran and Rafe. The fight was supposed to be over days ago, but now it was something else. This wasn't about training anymore. This was about pride, respect, and survival. Rafe's shoulders still hung at an odd angle from the earlier injury, but his eyes were steady, cold, and unreadable. Beside him, Mara stood near the wall, her hands clenched into fists. She wasn't afraid, but she looked like she was ready to move if things went bad. Joran's alien friends whispered in the corner, urging him to end it quickly. They had already seen what a human could do, but they still believed Joran could crush him. After all, Rafe was injured. But that was the mistake. The human moved with a quiet, calculated calm. His boots barely touched the ground as he stepped forward. Joran shifted nervously, but forced himself to keep his chin high. He was a cadet of the Vexery Academy. He couldn't back down. "Not now," the instructor called out. "Begin." It started. With a feint, Joran lunged, claws flashing toward Rafe's good side, hoping to force him to guard and leave the injured side open. But Rafe didn't even block. He stepped inside the attack fast, almost too fast to follow, and slammed his forehead into Joran's jaw. The alien staggered back, dazed, but Rafe didn't let him recover. He pivoted, drove his elbow into Joran's ribs, then twisted the alien's arm behind his back with brutal precision. The sound was sickening. Sharp pop, Joran, let out a strangled cry, his own shoulder now twisted in a way it wasn't meant to bend. Silence fell again. Every cadet in the room stared, not just at the injury, but the cold, efficient way it had been done. Rafe hadn't used brute strength. He had used control. The instructor stepped forward, his face unreadable. Enough, but Rafe didn't move. He leaned close to Joran's ear, speaking in a low voice only the alien could hear. Remember this. My world made me strong not because we like fighting, but because we have to survive it. Then he released him. Joran stumbled forward, clutching his useless arm. His alien friends didn't rush to help him. They were too busy staring at the human who had just dismantled their best fighter. Rafe turned and walked toward the door. As he passed Mara, he gave her a small, almost unnoticeable nod. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened for a brief moment. The cadets whispered as the human left the hall. The story would spread fast. The alien cadet who touched the humans, girl, and the shoulder he'd never forget. But there was something more dangerous in their whispers now. It wasn't just fear, it was respect.